All right. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. I'm so excited because today we have yet another PypeUp webinar on crafting seamless conversations and mastering conversational design for impactful user experiences with Edan Soroker. Did I get it? Soroker.
Yeah, you got it.
I did it. All right. So I'm just going to do a brief intro, Edan, and then we could go ahead and get started. So, as I said, I'm very excited to introduce Edan. Edan is a Senior Director of AI Solutions at Pypestream. Edan delivers innovative solutions across various industries for our clients with expertise in UX, conversational design, web integration, NLU, and design thinking. Edan's insights are a valuable asset. He holds a master's in mechanical engineering from Cornell University with a focus in music and applied math. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to you, Edan.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Lauren. Let me share my screen. We'll jump right in. All right. Screen share check. You seeing and hearing me?
We are.
All right, great. Thanks. So let's talk about mastering conversational design for impact today. On the agenda, we'll go through first just defining what it is that we even are talking about when we mention conversational design. I'll run through a few of our key principles that we consider as we approach building and designing conversational interactions between businesses and end users here at Pypestream and in general in the discipline. We'll talk about examples throughout, as well as kind of after we go through a lot of these principles. We'll look ahead towards some trends that are upcoming and thinking about the future and where we see the field going. And of course, we'll leave some time at the end for questions and answers. So let's jump to it. So conversational design, what is it that we mean when we talk about this? So it's all about crafting conversations between businesses or brands and their customers. It's about allowing people to interact with technology the way that people interact, using conversation and back and forth dialogue. It's a rapidly evolving field that is aiming at creating meaningful interactions. It's about creating effective, meaningful, and engaging conversations between humans and machines using natural language with interfaces such as chatbots, voice assistants, virtual agents, and so forth. So it could be either text-based messaging or voice. And a lot of our conversational applications really have potential to provide a human-like interaction in the way that people interact with businesses. So there are a lot of benefits that come with designing conversational applications, both from an end user or a customer's perspective, as well as for the business. So really, for a change, we're putting the onus on computers to interact more like humans versus the other way around. And when this is done well, it can really make the interaction between a person and a business feel natural, can feel personalized. Of course, our goal is not to trick people into thinking that the computer is a human, but we do want to allow people to communicate with brands in a way that just feels natural. When the user experience is seamless, enjoyable, it allows people to just navigate through the information of a company or a business and obtain the information that they need efficiently and easily. People are just more likely to develop a meaningful connection, engage for longer. This just contributes to more satisfied customers, better satisfaction levels, loyalty and retention for a brand. And really a big advantage here also comes from the fact that we're using free-form messaging or text as a large basis for the interaction. So we have AI systems behind the scenes that can help understand user inquiries and emotions, to offer automated solutions to direct users' problems, to address users' problems in a direct way and serve the information that people need in a tactful way, responding to more emotional cues. From an analytics perspective, the fact that we're working with natural language also allows us to get rich and insightful data to really understand in a deeper level how people are engaging, what people are asking for, what customers prefer when they're asking for information or questions from a company. And that just enables better decision making for customer support strategy. So in its ideal state, when we design these conversations well, we're really creating these win-win situations where both the customers and the businesses just stand to benefit from this. Of course, it also just promotes additional self-service capabilities for customers. So when we're using conversational automation, it reduces the workload on human support agents, which of course just leads to cost savings and improved efficiency for a business. Of course, a lot of the time, people, when they're escalating some sort of request from a brand, we want to get that human touch. We want to get that conversation going. It's not feasible for us to always have live agents available 24/7, 365, all times of the day. And when we can put conversational automation there to help really fill the gaps and reduce that pressure on the workload, again, that's just kind of paving the way for those win-win situations where we really stand to benefit 360 degrees. So let's talk about some key principles that we consider when we design conversations, not just here at Pypestream, but also in the field overall. So one of the real main core principles that I personally and we at the team here always like to abide by is being user-centric with our approach to everything that we do when we're crafting these interactions and these solutions and applications. We must prioritize the needs, the preferences, and goals of our end user. And there are a lot of different mechanisms that we use and techniques and tactics to help us kind of achieve or at least strive to be user first in all of our decision making along the design process. So we use tools like customer interviews and historical transcripts. And through that, conversational designers can gather real data and develop a nuanced understanding for the context around particular user customer pain points. What are the problems that people have that make them reach out to a business and seek help? How can we solve those problems better? But before we even jump into the solutioning, we really want to understand the problem fully from all angles and really a lot of the context, the frequency, and the nuances there to help us eventually zone in on the right kind of solution that will have the biggest impact. Also, because conversational applications allow for more human-like interaction than other digital channels that people are used to, like websites or mobile apps, this really gives us an opportunity to create a more authentic connection with our customers. So to develop that kind of authenticity, we have a lot of natural language processing and general just technology within our conversational solutions to understand user emotions and respond accordingly with appropriate tone and language. And we also apply a lot of design thinking methodologies along the process here as we set out at the beginning of the design, leveraging elements like user personas, mappings for think, feel, say, or do, as well as the 5 whys technique to really just hone in on the specific problems that we're trying to solve and to make sure that we're always stepping inside the shoes of our users as we're looking at the conversation that we're trying to craft. There are also ethical considerations that we should always be mindful of as we approach our designs with a user-centric approach. Things like avoiding bias in AI models and the data that goes into the training there. I'll talk about this soon. AI is becoming more and more prevalent in the work that we're doing in technology overall. And a lot of the ethical considerations there are only going to become more and more front and center as we kind of grapple with and embrace all of these new technologies that are coming on the horizon. There are also things such as handling data privacy that we must care for, especially with the conversational applications that we're building here at Pypestream that are becoming more and more sophisticated with integrations, handling personal information, health information, user accounts, financial information. Data sensitivity is a real issue. We take security very seriously, not just because it's necessary for compliance, because it's ethical and it's the right thing to do. It also helps just establish trust with our customers when they can see built into the conversation that the data sensitivity and integrity and consideration for these ethics are there, right? So as a user is interacting with us, if they see that, let's say we need a password or something like this, the fact that it's redacted really helps establish that that trust that we're treating the information sensitively and responsibly. And in addition, we also want to make sure that our conversational applications are as usable as possible and inclusive for everyone. So accessibility is a real focus area to concentrate on here. Not just for web applications, not just for apps, but also for conversations. Someone who is visually impaired or hearing impaired or doesn't have fine motor skills or is unable to use a mouse, for example, such conditions should not prohibit someone from being able to use these tools, this technology, or interact with businesses. Next, I want to talk about just how we can make the overall interaction feel more intuitive, because while we kind of bridging on that user-centric approach, we want to also make it just as easy as possible to interact with. So the idea of cognitive load here, I like this notion a lot. It's basically that if each decision point in an interaction really comes with a cost. I know I've personally experienced this. For anyone here in the audience, if you've ever logged onto a streaming platform, let's say Netflix, and you've just had so many options for what to watch that making the decision felt really tough, then you've experienced this yourself. I know that I have. I've even had times where I just log on to Netflix. There's so many things I can't decide, and I end up even watching nothing or going to a different platform altogether. It's also known by things like analysis paralysis, the paradox of choice. There are a lot of different terms for very similar principle. And the idea here is really that it also applies to our designs overall and conversational design especially. So for example, if we're presenting a menu or selection for a user to navigate through, it's always best to limit the amount of options so that we keep any decision point as simple and stress-free as possible. Because every trade-off that someone feels like they're making as part of an interaction, it has an impact on the satisfaction that someone feels from the experience. And if such a trade-off even feels too overwhelming, or people just feel like they're paralyzed or can't really decide, it can even become kind of a friction point that will cause people to potentially drop out of the conversation. So it's really important to pay attention to cognitive load and keeping it at bay. Along similar lines, it's very important to keep our language as consumer-friendly as possible. And it's very easy for us, especially in the tech industry. We use all sorts of terminology that's technical, that's involved, that's complicated, that's very precise, because we need to describe the work that we're doing. But just because we're comfortable using this language and terminology, things like if we talk about different channels for conversation, we talk about SMS, right? For us, maybe it's second nature. For your everyday person, maybe we should call it a text message to be safe, just to make it friendly to interact with. So it's also just very important to keep that in mind. Something that I like to think of as I'm building solutions in conversational applications is kind of like the swimming duck analogy. So basically, I think about the applications that we're building. Maybe under the surface, they're paddling like crazy, like a duck. We're combining AI, systems integrations, advanced logic, heavy computation, all of these things going on under the scenes, doing all sorts of really cool technical magic. And maybe it's super complicated once you peel off a few layers, but on face value, we're projecting a sense of ease to our audience. We're that smiling, we're that calm duck. For the end user, it has to be a simple experience. It has to be intuitive. It all starts there. It's what it's all about. I also like to think about presenting information in a clear and progressive way. So, a big advantage, as I was talking about with conversational applications, is that it feels natural. So we're not inundating people with a ton of content like they might expect from sifting through forums on an FAQ page on a website. But we have an opportunity to turn things into a conversation. So progressively disclosing information in a gradual way is key to making that experience come to life. And just to top it off, because we want our conversations to flow naturally, something you always want to think about is predicting the next step, making sure that as a user, whatever you might want to do, it's there and readily available and easy to find. So let's look at some quick examples. So here on the left, we've got one example where we're confirming information on a user's account. And after we show it, the prompt is, do you need to edit anything? And then we've got options to edit email, phone, and address. Here, there are some things that I would personally adjust, particularly the negative phrasing, right? The fact that do you need to edit anything means that the answer no is actually our happy path, which can be a little bit confusing. And we always like to use affirmative phrasing. So instead, I'd always opt to phrase that something like, does this information look correct? So that yes is always good, no is bad. Yes means continue, no means I need to fix something. Similarly, just the options on the right feel a lot more clean. So if you were to read this conversation as a transcript going back and forth, does this information look correct? A simple yes or no question. And then your options to respond are yes and no. Versus on the right, we're asking a yes or no question, but the responses aren't affirmative or negative. They're not yes or no. So it would feel disjointed if you were to try to read this like an actual back and forth interaction. Next, another example just about using consumer-friendly language. So on the left, we want to pay our bill, so we just need the user to log in. Technically speaking, we need to authenticate the user in order to pull up their latest bill. But just because we talk about this in the language of authenticate does not mean we need to impose that on our audience. So to the right, that is the preferred approach. It's more intuitive. Certainly, I just need to log you in first, and that is the terminology we like to use. Next, I want to talk about contextual awareness, as this is also an important element to cover here. And with our applications, we always strive to serve the right information at the right time to enrich the conversation and really make it feel intelligent and give the user that personal attention that we really have the opportunity to do with our applications. So we always need to remember that the user is interacting with our conversational app. Probably the relationship with the brand or even the user's just the span of their current journey began before they opened our conversation and will last after this conversation ends. Everything happens within context. So it's just really important to remember that and understand what that context is. What is the nature of the user's relationship with our brand? Are they a current customer? Are they a prospective customer? Do they have a specific problem that they're trying to solve? Are they just curious and looking for information? All of these things really contribute to the way that we want to build our application so that it feels contextually right. As the technology allows us to humanize digital interactions, we also want to avoid sounding dry or generic, right? We've all been on generic kind of website experiences, app experiences, and that's what we want to get away from. So any opportunities we have to add personalization, we always want to capitalize that. For example, if we can even just greet the customer by their name, that could really go a long way to add a personal touch to the experience. And lastly, because this conversational aspect of an application does lend itself naturally to escalating to a human if necessary, we always want to assure that any escalations are smooth without disruptions to the user. And on the agent side, if the agent can also get kind of a good summary and the context around what happened in the interaction up until the point where it reached the agent, that would really help them at understanding the user's problem and helping them solve it as quickly and efficiently as possible. So some more examples here. Just on the left, we have a little bit of a drier, more generic experience. I'm logged in, I want to pull up my orders, and the solution is prompting me to say, what is it about my orders that I want? Whereas on the right, we have a more contextually aware, intelligent, and proactive solution that can see that, okay, I'm logged in, I want to see my orders. So because there are these pieces of information already available to the solution, it will proactively check to see if I have any recent orders, because chances are that's probably what I'm interested in seeing. And of course, here it's pointing out that I have my upholstered love seat in transit, which is very exciting. And it's expected to arrive tomorrow. So as a user, without any extra clicks, I'm able to get vital information. So it just helps create that sense of personal attention and intelligence and just much more overall awareness from the solution. Another quick example on the left here, we're just trying to collect information about a healthcare provider. So we need the name, we need the address, and so forth. We need these pieces of information. There's no getting away around it. But as a solution, as an automation, as an intelligent application, we can be proactive here and use whatever data and information is available to us. So on the right, what we've done is we're pulling in the name of the healthcare provider that the user provided, and we can look up to see if we can find Dr. Helen Lee already on record. So rather than putting the onus on the user to get an address, we're pulling it up, we're displaying, we're saying, hey, this is what I found. Can you confirm this is right? So it's much less friction for the user. Again, just a much more intelligent solution. And to boot, some extra credit, we can even incorporate the rich media, showing the map on there just for some extra delight factor in the overall experience. Next, I want to touch on natural language processing, as this is a really important topic for making conversational technology come to life. It's really just the secret sauce for how computers can understand humans. And for particular elements that are instrumental here are intent recognition, entity recognition, sentiment analysis, and machine translation. So for example, right, if someone comes into our solution and says, I want to book a flight to New York next Tuesday, the intent would be to book a flight, and there would be several entities in that user utterance. One would be New York, the other would be next Tuesday. And so from here, we use the NLP, we use more logic and integrations to kind of turn these intents and entities into pure meaning and eventually into an actual transactional conversation between the user and the technology so that the user can get their flight booked and hopefully they'll be on their way to JFK by next Tuesday. An additional element here, of course, is sentiment analysis, which just allows us to detect emotion expressed in people's language and gives our technology the opportunity to just have some more empathy and tact in the way that we are responding to users, whether they're coming in from a place of curiosity, frustration, excitement, or anything in between. And with machine translation, of course, this is just a really, really powerful tool for expanding the reach and overall accessibility of our applications. So it just allows us to support multilingually, multinationally a lot more easily, catering to a diverse user base and fostering just more inclusivity overall. Now, I also want to talk briefly about generative AI, not necessarily the main topic of today's conversation, but definitely an important element in conversational design. And it would not be a tech discussion in 2023 without a generative AI slide. So there's no denying that it's really a hot topic, particularly in conversational applications. So this includes disciplines like LLMs, large language models, natural language generation, NLG, or generative pre-trained transformer, aka GPT. And it's really been instrumental in pushing the envelope for chatbots, virtual agent sophistication across the board. And while these are tremendously powerful applications, we do still need to be a little bit cautious about how we are using their content and their outputs, right? Because a lot of the output can be unpredictable and it's difficult to ensure the accuracy and consistency of information if we just let loose and kind of expose, let's say, ChatGPT to answer all questions about our company to the general public, right? It's a big risk and not something that we necessarily can guarantee will always be correct. So for that reason, a lot of risk-averse organizations have refrained so far from relying on Gen AI directly for producing user-facing content, but it's already proven to be tremendously useful for enhancing conversational tools through the means of classification, like tagging data for NLP training, or back-end processing, like summarizing interactions for support agents, and even other tools of analysis like topic modeling and so forth. And as this technology continues to grow and expand, both from kind of a technology standpoint as well as a usability and expertise standpoint, we're getting new fine-tuning capabilities, multi-model architectures that are being released for developers. And through the use of precise prompt engineering, we're also starting to really get a handle on how we can kind of control and predict and have kind of much more kind of directed control over the output of these models, to start actually relying on them a little bit more for dynamic conversations directly in real time with users. I also want to touch on error handling and conversational repairs, a very important topic that I haven't touched on so far, especially thinking about NLP, because we have all the tools and technology at our disposal, but at the end of the day, even the most perfectly trained model will always have misunderstandings and ambiguity. It's just natural with natural language. In human-to-human interaction, right? This happens all the time. We're just very adept at fixing misunderstandings. So we can read cues like body language, hear people's tone. If I didn't understand you, I'll just be like, huh? Or I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. What did you say? Did you mean XYZ? Right? We have a lot of these tools that as humans, we're just naturally good at that, and we take it for granted. But actually for a computer, it's very hard to do. So it's very important that we train our technology to handle misunderstandings and ambiguity, because they're bound to happen. As much as we'd love to prevent them, they are inevitable. So, we want to handle this gracefully. So in ways like giving options, saying, oops, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. I found a few possible options. Which did you mean? And also being transparent, saying, hey, I didn't catch that because maybe I'm not trained to understand that yet. At the moment, I am trained to understand requests about this or that. Or, also if there's just a continual misunderstanding and maybe you're not asking about this or that, always make sure that there's a way out. No dead ends, no infinite loops. So give an alternative means to get the answer you need, have built-in logic to escalate when appropriate. It's very important, because we've all been there where we've been stuck in the dead end in the infinite loop. And that's kind of the purgatory we want to get away from. Same exact thing applies to just general technical errors. As our applications get more and more sophisticated with integrations, transactional actions, and so forth, technical errors may happen from time to time, and we must handle them gracefully, give helpful messaging, and give a way out. Again, no loops, no dead ends. That's key. So I know we're running quick on time here, so I'll just zoom through a few quick examples for conversational design at work. Of course, I want to mention Pypestream here, as we go through a lot of effort and attention to how we design the conversations that we build here at Pypestream. And a lot of these elements and topics that I've been talking about are kind of ingrained in our implementation team, and we can really take these to heart with everything we design. In addition to that, we've got really rich user interface that takes all of the best of the conversational dialogue and back and forth messaging on top of an app-like user interface that allows for rich media, gestures, and more kind of guided navigation as well for when we really need that deep automation with lots of integrations. So very, very powerful applications that are tremendously transactional and, of course, conversational in nature. So I encourage you to go to our website to check out some more about the specific work that we've done and the enterprise clients that we work with. I'd also like to mention here a lot of these large language models and their chatbots. Of course, they've made waves because of the wealth of information and mind-numbing amount of data that they're trained on. But there's no denying that they're just really good conversationalists. They're built for that back and forth conversation. They have very impressive natural language processing and contextual understanding and continuity. They're very good at picking up the conversation wherever you left off, referring to historical conversations that you've had. So also just really admirable from a conversational design aspect. I'd also like to mention Google Assistant and Siri and these virtual assistants. Again, they're just naturally built for that back and forth conversation. They're very good, particularly at voice recognition, which is a key pillar of NLP, as well as determining user intents and entities like we've talked about. They also benefit from powerful integrations into the respective clouds, whether it's Google or Apple, with user data and preferences, as well as integrations into the operating system and hardware, so direct access to kind of move between applications, access to different elements of the hardware like sensors and things like that, just make them a very powerful application, as well as their multimodal kind of interaction modality through a lot of different devices and such. Some more quick notable examples from the field. Some of my favorites include TurboTax, which maybe it's not necessarily a chatbot or an assistant per se, but I think it exhibits really strong conversational design. In particular, it basically transforms a really anxiety-inducing process in preparing your taxes here in the United States and turns it into a very pleasant experience, which really feels like a back and forth interaction. And overall, you actually come away from filing your taxes feeling kind of uplifted, which I think is remarkable. Similarly, a favorite of mine is Rue by Planned Parenthood, which is a chatbot that provides sexual and reproductive health information, particularly aimed at teenagers who might not have different access to this kind of information, but it's also just generally very useful for anyone in the public. And it's just really well designed. It allows people to feel comfortable asking questions in a sensitive and anonymous way. And a lot of subject matter where people might even feel uncomfortable speaking with a human about this. So it's just a great example of where injecting automation or technology, especially in a conversational way, can really create a positive impact. And then quickly looking ahead, I realize we're over time here. So just a few themes that I personally am going to be paying close attention to over the coming months and years. And I encourage anyone interested in the field of conversational design to do the same. So I'm thinking that multimodal interactions, personalizations, integrations with new technologies like augmented and virtual reality, these are going to be really instrumental in helping push the envelope, as well as just improved capabilities overall with the AI, the natural language generation, natural language processing, the generative AI. As we get a handle on these technologies, they'll become more sophisticated, they'll become more controllable and predictable. I think that they'll really explode with their impact on the field. In addition to that, there's going to be more of an impact, more of a focus on conversational commerce. So actually using conversational design as revenue generation for businesses. And of course, ethical privacy, especially around AI, is going to become more and more prevalent as we get a foothold on AI and lean in more on the ethics, the regulation around these technologies. These are certainly going to make an impact on conversational design as a field going forward as well. And with that, I will leave it there. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Edan. That was really, really fascinating to hear. And like the idea that somebody could feel uplifted after doing their taxes is pretty amazing. So, technology is not all bad, folks. It is not all bad. We are out of time for sure. So I encourage folks to send in questions, rewatch the live, and I'll have Edan pop in and answer questions here and there as we share the recording. Again, Edan, thank you so much for joining us today. Really, really interesting topic, and looking forward to more conversations with the PypeUp webinar series.
Thank you very much.